Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Before I start, I've done a little bit more tinkering with the lighting in the room, so hopefully this is a little bit better than yesterday's video. I actually use ChatGPT, believe it or not. It's actually quite good for just some recommendations. Took a picture of my room, uploaded it, and it gave me some of the ways to maximize the space that I have to sort of make this as sort of like a YouTube studio. I actually think it's turned out pretty good. So yeah, you should use ChatGPT for stuff like that. It's actually quite good. But today I wanted to talk a little bit more about sports rights because I know I seem to be going on a lot about it, but it's actually quite interesting, and it's actually, I believe, going to shape the way 2026 goes, considering how much has already come out this year. I've been listening a lot this week. A podcast. So I think it's called The Business of Sport, and it's held by Charlie Stebbings and Harry Stebbings. I think they're brothers, and on it they had Charlie Medvin, who was the ex-CEO of Sunderland and played a big part in that documentary. I think it was like Sunderland Till I Die on Netflix, which did pretty well. So he was the co-owner in that, and in a nutshell, they basically go over. They went over a little bit about DAZN, Matchroom, but they spoke a lot about DAZN's sort of financial position, which I thought was quite interesting. But also they praised a lot of Matchroom, and I touched upon DAZN's sort of financial despair yesterday, but it seems to me that they if you go on their sort of platform, that they are maybe spreading themselves a little bit too thin. I mean, just recently
They signed a 5-year contract at 84 million euros a year in December 2024. And as part of that, DAZN needed to really maximise this. They needed to agree contracts with a number of local TV and kind of linear broadcast operators, something that's very common practice when you get these deals in place. And particularly as an OTT platform, they need the support to broaden that audience, and they have failed to do that.
Paying that contract at least up until the end of the season, and if they didn't, they would have to it would incur a penalty of 50,000 euros a day until they paid that back. And I think they had to pay 25% of the opposing sort of fields legal fees too. So it seems to me that maybe that they are trying to push back on the sports rights that they have spent so much trying to acquire, and maybe sort of instead of trying to sweep it all up, they're trying to maybe be a little bit more strategic this year. And I guess when you look at their financials, you can kind of see from their perspective that they do need to calm down a little bit. I mean, they've lost, I think they lost like 700 million last year, and in the previous year before that, they lost 1.2 billion. And the owner, Leonard Blavatnik, seems to be putting in a lot of his personal wealth, which that guy must be worth a lot of money, but he seems to be putting in the wealth on propping up the company. I can see it in the future maybe being bought by a sovereign wealth fund like the Surge Investment Fund that recently acquired a $1 billion stake, which sort of values the company at around 10 billion. They bought 10% for 1 billion, so DAZN on that basis is worth 10 billion. So it'd be interesting to see if Surge take a bigger stake in that company, and whereby, you know, if the company starts to maybe lose a lot more than what they're planning to. I think they are planning to become profitable by the end of 2026, which is a big feat considering the legal battles that they're sort of subjecting themselves to. Obviously, I touched upon the Belgian Super League, but also they are in a bit of trouble with the French Super League as well, because they reneged on that contract too. So they're trying to sort of cut back on those. And as mentioned, I do see the Saudis increasing their stake. I may be buying DAZN at a cut price, because I guess if they maybe have the financial power to sort of maybe, you know, either either pay up the rights fees that DAZN have subjected themselves to, and then maybe start again afterwards. It could be sort of a company that could be molded to do really well. I know DAZN and MENA have like a big relationship. They're doing a lot in the Middle East, North Africa, etc. So yeah, I do see it going that way. But it also leads me on to something that I also found quite interesting. Yeah, so it leads me onto the quote by TKA Group Holdings, Ari Emanuel and Mark Shapiro, who recently told Puck's Matthew Belloni that Netflix was very close to winning a portion of the UST's broadcast rights, but ultimately lost out because the streamer wasn't interested in tonnage. They didn't want the volume at the end of the day, they wanted just the premium. In that case, it was the numbered pay-per-view dates every month. Of course, the UFC went on to sign a big deal with Paramount Plus in the region of $7.7 billion over 7 years, just over $1 billion. So maybe that's another sort of trend that we can see going into 2026, is that these big streaming platforms, Amazon, Netflix, YouTube now with IBV Boxing, that they are just going to buy, Sky Sports as well, that they are just going to buy select few events. So instead of, partnering with a promoter, they're going to buy a big event, like a Eubank Ben. I think Sky bought the rights to the first fight and then show the second fight. I think that was just exclusive to DAZN. AJ Jake Paul, another big example of that as well, where Netflix just sort of just bought the one fight. Canelo Crawford, another example, and that did really well on that platform as well. So it could be the strategy going forward, and I think it does make sense from a broadcaster's point of view, because when you sort of sweep up all these rights from all these different sort of like sports, you do maybe spread yourself a little bit too thin, and you can't please everybody. But I guess the sort of caveat to that is that Netflix isn't a sports streamer. Their whole business model is based on movies, films. They've got select interests in sport, and maybe they're the ones that are doing it right. They're the ones that have the WWE. They're the ones that have that are buying the rights to AJ Jake Paul. So maybe that's the way. YouTube with that deal with IFB TV. So yeah, that's just something to look out for in 2026. In other news, Boxer have announced more dates with the BBC, which can only be good for British boxing, because it means that boxing isn't behind a paywall. Well, it still is, but it means that more boxing is on free-to-air TV, which is where it belongs on, which is where we can get the best out of the sport. So they've got more dates in March, April and May. Originally, that deal was reported to be 4 shows a year, apparently, but that's quickly become not the case. They're announcing more and more shows. It seems like, Ben Shalom is maybe starting to get a foothold at the BBC, maybe. That's still very early days, but the fact that he's getting more dates now shows that, that there's something there, that they see something in him. And also they are going to announce that pay-per-view broadcaster, so maybe they can use that as a way to sway more talent, because you want to sort of keep the pool of talent outside of the top 2 promoters, and sort of maintain some of that competition between the promoters, which seem to have gone away given the introduction of DAZN, whereby you've got Queensberry and Matchroom on the same platform. Obviously, Turkey Al Sheikh has sort of taken that way of sort of needing that needle between 2 promoters. So yeah, anyway, just my thoughts on that. I'll try not to speak about sports rights in tomorrow's video, but I can't help it. It's an interesting topic. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.